All right, what's going on, guys? So in this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do some fragrance 101. So the question of the day is going to be, should you still buy fragrance dupes, fragrance clones in 2024? Okay, so first off, let's talk about what is a fragrance clone, right? So for those of us getting into fragrances, fragrance clones are fragrances that are made inspired by or who have the same DNA of either a established designer brand or an established niche fragrance company, right? And the reason why they're dupes is because they're basically replicating a DNA, fragrance DNA that is already existing, right? So for example, one of the fragrances you guys see me talk about all the time, this one here, this one is Jean Paul Gaultier Ultramel, okay? And Ultramel is one of my favorite designer fragrances out on the market, one of the favorites in my collection. And I love it because of its sort of vanillic, aromatic, and playful nature, as far as just it being one of the sweeter fragrances. You can use it daytime, nighttime, so on and so forth. But it is really known as the king of clubbing fragrances, one of the top compliment pulling fragrances really that have ever been made. And for that reason, right, people love it, people like to buy it, people like to get their hands on it. People have bought it retail, non-retail. They are not shy about pulling the trigger and getting it at full price. Well, for some people, you know, that fragrance going out right now, even if you get it on a discounter, a fragrance discounter, you're looking at least at $110 roughly, maybe even at $100, which for some people there's no problem. That it's just, you know, that's just part of, you know, getting good fragrances. For other people, they may not want to always pull the trigger and kind of spend that much for a fragrance, right? So then what starts happening is especially in recent years, you know, I look at it since 2020, since the pandemic, but even before that, when I was getting into collecting, you know, 2018, 2019, these things called clone fragrances really were starting to make their name and start to become a thing, right? And especially now, I would argue that clone brands are kind of becoming the more in vogue thing in the market. So taking Ultramel's DNA, one of the clone fragrances that exists that really is kind of a great replica is this one here from the brand. This one is called AFNAN, and this one here is called AFNAN 9 p.m. Now, 9 p.m. from AFNAN, to me, honestly, is as close, if not as spot on as far as the DNA is concerned. The only thing is that there's maybe one or two notes that are a little bit different, but in terms of capturing the sort of apple, the sort of lavender, the sort of cinnamon, lavender and bergamot that you get with the Ultramel, it's about 90 to 95% accurate as far as that is concerned. And for someone like me, right, I paid, I think at the time when I got this bottle of Ultramel, this one was $120 and this one is a 4.2 ounce bottle. This is 9 p.m. I paid $30 for this on Amazon, right? So from that aspect, nearly $100 difference for the same fragrance DNA, the same fragrance profile, right? So just on that is, you know, kind of some of the reasons why people will say that they like clone fragrances better, right? Now, another thing to consider is, well, okay, yeah, the scent might be the same, but what about the performance? From what I've gathered, at least, and that's where people have to do the due diligence as far as, you know, getting their hands on fragrances, as far as kind of testing these out. And that's a risk you run when you try to get these clone brands, when you try to save the money. Sometimes the quality isn't always the best, right? Sometimes the clone fragrance is a little bit less sharp or more sharp in terms of it's a little bit more pungent, it's a little bit more off-putting, because there are certain notes, the perfumer is not the same, so the person who makes the fragrance is not the same. And as a result, maybe the notes that they take out of the clone brand may not be as pleasant, may not be as appealing as the original, right? Also, the performance, usually the performances may be affected, good or bad. More times than not, clone fragrances, usually the performance isn't as long, especially because you're not paying as much for it. So they don't have to invest as much in the quality of the fragrance, right? In this case, you know, we look at AFNAN. AFNAN fragrances usually have done well as far as performance, but even still, compared to the original designer, Jean Paul Gaultier, Jean Paul Gaultier still has better performance, a little bit better quality of the fragrance, just by a tad. But those little things are the difference between you possibly having a really good compliment pulling fragrance and you having a good, not great fragrance. So that's another thing to consider. Get your nose on it, do your research on it, and see, is the clone brand, you know, about 99%, 5% accurate. One, does the replication of the fragrance notes, the fragrance DNA, are they about the same, or is it something completely different and even the name is different, right? I've seen also fragrances that are clones where they literally almost clone the name of the fragrance. But like I've seen something like this that I have already, Dior Sauvage with a Parfum. I've seen like a Savage, right? And those ones I would say raise a little bit more of an eyebrow because it's not there's no uniqueness to it, right? That can kind of be off-putting. Even the presentation of it can be a little bit off-putting. So those are the only type of clone fragrances I'd say stay away from, because usually in my experience, when I've tried those ones out, those ones usually are kind of dupes and they're a little bit rip-offish. Both by the scent quality, the scent DNA. They don't last as long, they don't project as long. So any fragrance where they try to take like the same bottle design, but then they rip it off and just say, hey, it's Savage, but they just change the wording a little bit, like that's where you're getting a little bit more in the rip-off category. Now, sometimes you can have fragrances that are inspired by or who are dupes, and honestly, it can be better and more pleasing to the nose. That does happen, and so that's where the fun of fragrances kind of comes. So to bring this Dior Sauvage example back to light, so Dior Sauvage for me was probably the second or third fragrance that I got when I started collecting, and I actually get a lot of compliments when I wore Dior Sauvage back in 2019 when I got it. Even when the seldom chance that I do pop out and wear it, it is one of those that does garner me compliments. It's one of the most popular fragrances ever. Now they have Sauvage Elixir, Sauvage Eau Font, but even the EDP that I have in my collection is one of the ones that has done well for me. However, I honestly don't like Sauvage that much. Not because it's played out, not because it's popular, not because it's mass pleasing. There's no uniqueness, but honestly, the sharpness from this fragrance that you get with the spiciness and sort of the projection to me was a little bit off-putting. But I got it just on principle of I'm starting my collection, and you can't be a serious collector if you don't have Sauvage in your collection at the time. Now, again, for those of us who are looking at it and say, well, should we still get it, Mike? I mean, again, if you like that fresh, spicy note, if you like something that is mass pleasing, many people still get their hands on it because of the bergamot, because of the pepper, because of the ambroxan, which I love. So definitely there is still a purpose for it in many people's collection. However, I've been able to find something that was inspired by a little bit of a dupe of it, a little bit of a clone of it, that to me I like better, and that would be this one from Prada. This one here is called Prada Luna Rossa Carbon, okay? For me, Luna Rossa Carbon is one of those fragrances. It still has that fresh, spicy nature that you would get in Sauvage. It still has that amber, but this one is a little bit more metallic, a little bit more watery. And so because of the watery and metallic notes mixed with that little bit of woods and a little bit of mineral notes, it's a little bit smoother for me. And because of the smoothness, it's easier for me first off to take, and let alone for me to wear too. Like, it's not gonna choke you out. You can kind of spray it generously, and it'll have a nicer sillage than Sauvage EDP. Sauvage EDP is one of those that it's a little bit pungent. After it dries down, it's a little bit more pleasant. But for me, this one from start to finish, for me, I like better. So some people prefer clone fragrances, prefer inspired by fragrances more than even the originals, and sometimes that happens, and then you can get them more affordably, so that there you have a win-win situation. So to answer the question, going back to it, should you buy clones, should you buy inspired by fragrances? To me, if you like them and if you're trying to save yourself some money, definitely I say put a trigger on them. Do your research, get your nose on the original if you can, or try to, get your nose on the clone one if you can. A lot of these mom and pop shops are more so gonna have those fragrances. Those are where you're gonna buy them, see if you like them, and then from there, you can say, okay, this one's a go, this one's not a go, this one I like, I don't like. And then always, to me, I prefer to shop on discounters when I'm getting dupes because they're affordable there. You can get the best dupes, like I said, most AFNAN fragrances, most Tafa fragrance, most Maison Alhambra fragrances. Those are some of the top clone brands, inspired by brands that are out there. You get them on Joma Shop, you get them on Fragrance X, Fragrance Net, Amazon, and you can get them for under $50. Most of them are going for like 30, 40, at the most $50 if you're getting a big bottle. Alhambra is another great dupe brand of a lot of the top designer and niche fragrances out there. So to each his own is the case. Should you still buy dupes? Should you still buy clones in 2024? In my opinion, yes. I get them. They save you some money. You get that DNA, and then if you want to get the original in your collection later on down the line, then so be it. And then at least now you have a little bit of familiarity as far as the notes, as far as the fragrance, as far as the DNA, as far as the projection. Does your body chemistry bode well with that fragrance? Do you get compliments from that fragrance? And then from there, you've already done your homework. So it's a little bit of you building your fragrance nose, building your fragrance palette too, which is a dub for me and a dub for you guys as well. But I'll do it for today, guys. I hope you guys learned something. Again, we're talking about fragrance dupes. Get yourself some fragrance dupes, but at the end of the day, whether you decide to get the original, whether you decide to get the dupe, at the end of the day, it's all about looking, feeling, and smelling good. And that's all we're trying to do. Again, make sure to comment down below what videos you guys want to do. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to share this video with a fellow frag head. And we'll catch you on the next one. Much love.